Hello, friends and fellow seekers. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice podcast. My name is Elle, and today we are going to be talking about money, but not really necessarily money, but about service and some of the misconceptions of what it means to share money and to serve others. Because sometimes we can think that the main way to serve is to get a bunch of money and then share that with others. And although that may be helpful in some cases, a lot of it has to do with intention and the way that you perceive the world and the way that you choose to view this money, which I would, call energy in another form. So, before I begin, if I could just ask that you like this podcast, if you appreciate my efforts in attempting to do this type of stuff, I appreciate it very much, and it helps other people see it easier. So, it is difficult to live in a world where it seems that everything revolves around money. It is important to remind ourselves that money is only representative of energy. This energy is not necessarily evil. It definitely encourages people to embrace separation as they hoard this treasure because of fear of lack, when in reality there is more to our lives than energy in the form of money. It is known that after people have achieved a certain level of having their basic needs met, plus a little more for leisure, increased money doesn't necessarily increase happiness. So then we must ask ourselves, what does it mean to serve? Is it just about giving money away, or are there more forms of service available? Time, sympathy, honesty, love, wisdom, all of these things are valuable to ourselves and others. If we expand the scope of what it means to serve, we can come to a more balanced view of money. Yes, sharing money is a form of service, but so is sharing all the previously mentioned things. So when we set our intention to serve, you don't have to limit your service to the money area. Give your time, give your heart and wisdom, give your sympathy. Even the largest one that has been a real awakening for me is to give an ear to listen to someone's woes. You do underestimate how healing it is to listen to someone, because when you listen to them and you allow them to speak, in order for them to formulate words, they have to essentially digest the catalyst in their head. They have to make sense of their thoughts so that they can speak them out loud. And often, all you have to do is just give yourself and your time and a sympathy and allow them to open up to you. And in giving an ear to listen to someone, you are probably serving in a very massive manner. So these are all extremely valuable, and sometimes more so than money. And with that intro, I will be reading you some quotes from some transcripts from the LL research. This is going way back now. This is even before I was born. November 24th, 1985, from a entity who refers to themselves as Hatan, or Hatan, I believe is actually how you say it. And for all of those who are weird spiritual people like me and you like to listen to these channelings and stuff, you may want to know Hatan is a fourth density entity. So they come from the density after the one that we're in. We're in the third. They come from the fourth density. And I often find that their words resonate a little bit more with me than some of the fifth and sixth density entities like Quo and Ra. And it's mostly just because they have been in the third density more recently than the other ones have, and so they kind of have a more realistic view of things and tend to hit the heart a little easier. So without further ado, I shall read you this. From November 24th, 1985, Hatan says, "There is that about money which is finite, in the heaviest illusory sense of that word. And indeed, it does come through into the illusion as each entity pays its bills and ponders how to save, how to spend, and how to conduct one's business, that there is nothing left over, that the riches that one has coming to one are not a plenty, but are a subsistence which one may work with the budget and the planning. Indeed, this institution of the spending of money is one of very many ways that lead to separation. And yet let us look at other ways as well. Yes, it is true that there are those within the city close to your dwelling place who are hungry to this day, who do not have appropriate clothing for the chilliness of your present climate, who have found themselves unable to enter themselves into society with enough success to produce money. And my friends, this is something that is likely to be somewhat of a growing experience as times become more confused and the society less stable." Stopping there. Little did they know, hey? 1985 to what are we in, 2024? Oh yes, how how those divides have grown between certain people in society. Continuing on, one does not have to look far to find ways to share one's money, for we shall tell you that there is a great liberation in the sharing of what in your illusion seems to be that which you need. It liberates an entity which is plunged into the illusion from the illusion precisely insofar as the entity is giving great gifts with the desire to serve the one great self that knows no separation. Yet there are many ways in which we may plunge into the illusion, my friends, are there not? When is a smile stopped upon the face because an entity is plunged too far into an attitude of separation to be able to share that joy with another? When is the young inexperience shut off from the giver of that experience, but when the giver of that experience is self-involved and feels that it would be too expensive to spend time in merely speaking? You see, in actuality, my friends, all those about you are cells of your body, living portions of your reality. To open one's heart, whatever the need, when done consciously, is a polarizing action, whether it is by giving of the money, or giving of the time, giving of attention, giving of sympathy. You have much to share with those about you. You have many appropriate greetings for yourself. You have much room for love. And yet, can you do this for yourself? We assure you that unless the will is engaged, your experience of true sharing shall inevitably be blunted, for it is not something that is done mechanically, but from the heart. Therefore, as always, we assure you that the process of service to others begins within as you groom and season your own personal reality with a thirst and a desire to serve. It helps within your illusion if some process of analysis is added to this thirst for service, for each has prepared a way in which to walk to be of service, and clues are all about you. Yet without the continuing process of prayerful meditation, of a daily focusing on the search for that one great original thought and the consciousness it provides, your ambition to be a pure part of the body and vehicle for the Creator will be emaciated. How we encourage you to continue in your meditations and prayers, and then encourage you to open the eyes and see within each day, each experience, not only the good that can come from that, but the clues towards your own centering and your own greatest depth of being. End of quote. And so maybe you have heard me talk about freely give, freely receive before. It is something that I had learned quite a long time ago, almost like a decade ago, and I really tried to enact that energy in my life. In other words, what I would do is I would attempt to, firstly realize that I live somewhat in abundance. Like, I don't really, okay, but I mean, I do, right? Like, I'm not rich. However, I have my basic needs met. And I can't really complain about a lot. I mean, I could complain, but what good is that going to do anyone, right? So when you're working with this freely give, freely receive energy, I learned over time that a lot of that is to do with purifying your intention, right? Your intention to serve. What does it mean to give away money if it doesn't really mean anything to you, or if you don't really give it with the sort of pure heart that you're trying to do good, right? And I know some of you may have issue with that because, of course, a little bit of money can go a long ways with some of us. However, right, it mostly comes down to your intention. If you give and you're not really giving for the sake of service to others, then it's still a good thing, I suppose. But like they mentioned in the quote, we assure you that unless the will is engaged, your experience of true sharing shall inevitably be blunted, for it is not something that is done mechanically, but from the heart, which I suppose is what I'm trying to highlight here. When you purify your intention to serve, and no one's intentions are completely pure. We still have a little bit of selfishness within us because we are human, and that's okay. But that's part of accepting yourself as well. But once you can accept that part of yourself and still attempt to give from a place of service to others, well, then you're not doing it mechanically, but you're doing it from the heart. And to my understanding, when you do that, it's sort of more magic injected into the situation. So from what I've noticed, is that magic, it really amplifies as you purify your intention to serve, and it comes from a good place. And I mean, I can give you a few small examples, okay, of this freely give, freely receive, because freely give, freely receive is just another way of saying like an open heart, right? An open heart is one of unconditional love and one of acceptance. And so as you are sort of doing okay in your life, and you are, you have a little extra to share, whether that be extra money, time, whatever it may be, well, you can go out and share that. And if it's coming from the heart, often that energy will even return to you, as they say in other places, tenfold. Like, what you give today will come back to you. And why might that be? Well, my friends, we are all one. And so as you serve others, you really are serving yourself in a larger aspect. But even then, the universe, God, the creator, or whatever you may call it, tends to, I guess, reward that sort of giving, that freely giving. And I've noticed that in my life, that the more that I can sometimes sacrifice, where I'm thinking, oh, it would be better for me to hold on to a little bit of this money for a rainy day or whatever like that. But I still see the need in this other person, and they could use a little boost, a little love, a little whatever it may be. All right, I share that money, and often what I get back, either just from that person immediately in terms of a smile or a thank you, or even if nothing, eventually something will come back to you as sort of a positive feedback loop that, hey, what you're doing is important and it matters, and here you go, here's your feedback that all is well, and maybe you should continue on in that way. So a quick example, I maybe shared this story before. It's really simple, okay, but me and my friend were doing a little three-par pitch and putt type thing. And when we went to the front office to sort of pay our dues or whatever to have our 9 holes to go pitch and putt, play golf, whatever, my friend, it wasn't even much money. It was maybe like $7 each. And he said, hey, I'm going to pay for you. And part of my attitude at the time was freely give, freely receive. So I don't want to say no, right? Someone's trying to do something good for me, so I would like to say, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that you're willing to do that. Thanks. I love it. I'll take it. So then we go and we play golf, and we're walking back to the sort of clubhouse, if you will. It's not really a clubhouse; it's a tiny little shack. But we're walking back to the main shack to our vehicle, and I find a $10 bill on the ground, and we almost saw it at the same time, but me and my friend, I did see it a little bit before him, and I was like, oh my goodness, and I bent over and picked it up, like, oh, awesome. And the first thought in my head was, hey, he just paid for my golf, I just found $10 on the ground, I'm gonna give it to him. Just seems to make sense. Like, hey man, thanks for giving to me, and here, I want to show my appreciation. So I just gave that $10 right to him right away. Right, so he paid $7 and he got back 10. Okay, so there's a good start. Okay, and I'm not making this up. Okay, so 10 minutes later, we're driving back to my house and we're stopped at a red light, and I'm in the passenger seat. I look over to my right, and what do I see there sitting on the ground? A $20 bill. So I quickly was like, oh man, holy crap. I jump out of the car, I scoop up the $20. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck? There's money everywhere here today, apparently. But at that point, right, I was like, hey, I gave you the first 10. I think this is a sign. I'm just going to keep this 20. And he obviously didn't have a problem with it. He's already happy that he's got some money in his pocket. And I felt that this was, I'd already shared with him, and I didn't want to be overly weird about giving him a bunch of money. So I just thought, hey, this is sort of a reward for me exemplifying this freely give, freely receive energy. So, right, he gave 7, he got back 10, I gave 10, I got back 20. This is sort of the magic that I'm talking about, where if you are giving from the heart, there's these weird synchronicities that generally seem to happen. And I mean, they're usually not that fast, to be honest with you. It's usually not within a 10-minute period. It tends to be more elongated than that. It tends to be a bit of a delay sometimes when you're attempting to give. And so, I kind of boil that down to faith that all is well, and that I'm just going to give of what I can of myself, and eventually maybe something will come back to me. I don't really care, right? It's freely give, freely receive. I'm not doing it for the return, but I do know sort of the nature of the universe, and that seems to be something that I've learned, that what you give will come back to you, and because you are one. And so the more that you show that intention, the more that intention can come into your life, that same type of energy. So that is just a quick story, and then I want to add on a very short extra quote. This is from Quo from November 13th, 2010. I remember reading this forever ago, and the more my life goes on, the more that it seems to be true. So they stated, "Set your intention to serve, and you shall serve beyond your wildest dreams." End of quote. And that quote has stuck with me for a long time, and I suppose if like the first thing that comes to my head, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up numbers and sort of sounds like a bit of an ego stroke, but I set my intention to serve in terms of the Law of One material. I originally, I don't know, 12 years ago or something, I found the Law of One material because I kept asking about life, sort of internally and using my will. I wanted to know what's this all about? I want to know what this reality is about. I demand answers. And the Law of One kept popping up into my perception, and eventually I was like, okay, I better read this thing. So as I read it, I'm just like astonished at what I'm reading. I'm finding so many answers for all the questions that I've had. I'm, learning a lot, and I've, in the long run, I sort of read quotes like that, set your intention to serve and you'll serve beyond your wildest dreams. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not sure what that means. But there's also a part in the Law of One about in terms of service, what does it mean to serve? Well, everyone's service is unique. There's not a particularly individual thing that I can tell you that is going to be what your service is. But in the Law of One, the raw material, they mention, I'm not quoting it exactly, but something about as you seek to know yourself and to share yourself with others, that is service. Okay, so what has helped you, I guess, in a way, right? So what has helped me, the Law of One? Well, I wanted to share the Law of One material with other people. So I thought, hey, I don't have much money. I really had no money at that time. However, I had a cell phone, and Instagram was just beginning to be a thing. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to make a Law of One account, and I'm going to just post some beautiful art, because I think the world is lacking in beauty and true art. And I want to, share beauty with others in the form of art, and obviously including quotes from all of this material below, so that we can share some of this philosophy with others, because it has served me, and I wish to share this service, this knowledge, this wisdom, this love, whatever you want to call it, with others. And so as I did that, over, I don't know how long it's been now, like maybe over 10 years now. And I've gone from the counting doesn't matter, my friends, but this is just an example, okay? But my account went from, a few hundred people to maybe a couple of thousand people to today. I think it's at 388,000 followers on the page, with, millions and millions of people who have seen all of these posts over the years. And do you think I would expect myself that that's something that was going to happen? No, not at all. I just thought, hey, to serve one is to serve all. I'm going to keep at this. And even though there was a lot of times when it seemed like nobody cared, I just kept on at it, just being consistent. I want to share, the love as I know it to myself. And, over time, it seems people resonate with that type of freely give, freely receive energy. And they know that, that I'm not shilling ads on the page or anything. I'm just making it about service, about love and philosophy and wisdom. And would I have known that I was going to reach that high number? Right? That's beyond my wildest dreams. I have no idea how that happened. So, right. It doesn't have to be something spectacular like that. It doesn't have to be something that you can show to others and prove. And, in fact, maybe the more that you can, the more that you should be suspicious of it, right? That's why I don't tell people necessarily who I am. I don't really tell them about my Law of One page, because the first thing they say is, oh my God, you have so many followers. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I do in a way, right? That's a human part of myself, but I sort of shield my ego, from enlarging by just sort of keeping that on the down low, that that I do something to serve, and I don't really tell many people about it, right? Those of you that have found this, I feel you found it because you sought those answers. And the other people in my life who might like to know about my page, I don't feel the need to to share it with them, because it's more like, well, whatever, if they really wanted the answers and wanted to find this type of information, they would find it. And so if they haven't, I mean, well, so be it. And if they do find it, then great. I will totally tell them who I am and that I'm the one behind this. So no problem. But anyways, service beyond your wildest dreams, my friends. And I want to highlight in that, right, that it didn't take really much money to do that type of thing. Like, yes, the cell phone costs money. Yes, the cell phone plan costs money. But I was going to have that anyways, right? I was going to have this little black Satan box to consume my attention and to lead me astray. And that was also another part about it, was that I was thinking to myself, like, I need to use this technology in a positive manner, not in like a distracting manner. So that was another aspect to why I did that. But the point is that it doesn't really take much money. It's more about time and consistency and an effort of finding good material to share and good art to share. And the more that I did that, the more that people see what I'm doing, is coming from a good place, and they seem to resonate with it. And so that grows, right? Didn't take really any money at all. It's mostly just me sacrificing my time, such as I'm doing right now while I'm recording this on my lunch break. So, freely give, freely receive. What else? Purity of intention, money in service, money in separation. I think we've kind of talked about all of that. Sacrifice is rewarded, right? Like, as sometimes you think there's that ego part of yourself, that human aspect that wants to hoard, because you have a fear of lack, of maybe you grew up with nothing and now you have stuff, and so you kind of want to hold all your treasures and wealth close to you. Which is just fair to a certain degree, right? Like, I'm not saying that you need to give everything away, right? Like, I mean, I know that Jesus guy says, give all your possessions away. I think but at the same time, there's another story about, I believe, him sharing a sandwich with somebody, right? So we don't want to necessarily give away the whole sandwich and then not have anything to sustain ourselves, right? Like, that it would be a great sacrifice, I'm sure, but it's sort of falling into the area of martyrdom, where it's I think it's more wise to share the sandwich, right? Like, you can take care of yourself and take care of others, sacrifice half of what you have, something like that. And that's a positive thing to do. I just think there's a lot of misconceptions about charity, and that we, like, to take care of yourself is selfish, and you shouldn't have nice things, and you shouldn't do this because that's just, fluffing up your ego. But I think it's okay. I think it's okay. Take care of yourself, right? Like, you want to set the example of how to serve, and then you can give away all the rest. And another way to frame that, in terms of like not finding your service, like not trying to be selfish in your service, is that like longevity matters, right? So even when it comes to health matters and taking care of yourself, like, what way do you frame this in your head? You can frame it as I'm spending all my time and effort on myself, like I'm being so selfish. But no, right? There is in the Law of One somewhere where they mention about like health matters and taking care of yourself, is that you're doing it so you can serve for a longer period of time, right? Like, what if you gave away that sandwich, just going overkill here, but you gave away that sandwich and then you died of starvation and the other person lived. Well, when you could have just shared the sandwich and you both could have gone on and you could have then served for a longer period of time. So there is within that question, I suppose, longevity, right? Like, the more that you can set yourself up to be somewhat comfortable and healthy in terms of your bank account and your health, a health account, let's say, right? The more time that you can spend on this earth serving others. So you have to sort of balance that, and that's how you can sort of also look at where your intentions really lie, right? It's like sometimes we confuse ourselves and we think like, I'm just going to be a martyr. I'm going to give away everything and I'm going to be the perfect example. Well, I would call that spiritual ego, my friends. You are human, right? It's okay to take care of yourself, and for whatever you deem that might be a little extra, well, freely give, freely receive. I'm not saying you necessarily need to go out and give away all your money today. What I'm trying to say is that when you see an opportunity to serve, and you make the sacrifice, even when it's a little bit difficult, it will be rewarded. And even if it doesn't seem like it's rewarded, it's going to mean so much to someone else, right? Like, if if you have millions of dollars and you gave away $1,000 to somebody, like in their eyes, that thousand can move mountains for them. It can sustain them for a long period of time. So it's more so just about just balancing your perception and your intention, and attempting your best to purify your will and your intention to serve. And the more that comes from a pure place in your heart, the more that you're going to see that magic and that synchronicity play out, and you're going to get feedback that what you're doing is a good thing, and people will appreciate it, I'm sure. Okay, so I think that's all I kind of have to say for today. We could go on and on, I'm sure, but it's starting to get a little bit long. So I appreciate all of you listening and supporting my service here. If you like the podcast, please give it a like. Make sure you subscribe if you aren't already. And if you appreciate the service, seems appropriate to give in this one. Hey, I have a on my website, I have a PayPal. You can set up like a one-time payment or recurring payment, or you can join my Patreon. I really appreciate all of that. It really helps me to be able to do this in a more steady manner. Like I said, right, like I probably would be doing it anyways. I would definitely be doing all the Instagram posts and everything. But I think the longevity of the podcast, I do require a bit of sustenance for this aspect of it, because it does sort of interfere with my work sometimes, and I do get a little burnt out even from it. And like if you noticed, I took a month off or 2 months off before, and I was sort of thinking in my head, like, what am I doing? Is this right? And then, you guys all left the most beautiful comments on my last podcast when I came back last week, and I've read all of them. I plan on sort of going back and trying to respond to them, but it really does mean a lot to me that you guys are supporting in this way, and whether monetary or not, like your comments that you left on the last one were a huge boost for me to know that what I'm doing matters, and so I shall keep doing it even when I have my little areas of self-doubt sometimes. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys all for listening, for believing in this service and resonating with it, and doing whatever you can to help me continue on getting this information out. I'm full of gratitude beyond my wildest dreams. It would be nice to eventually be able to not work, and maybe enough of you join my Patreon, I could bail from my working at my job for 15 years and just focus on podcasts and daily posts. But maybe that's my wildest dream. Maybe it's yet to come true. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. But I just appreciate all of you, and I thank you all for seeking the truth and doing your best to be the light in the world that we so need. And so thank you guys. I hope you have a good rest of the week, and you should be hearing from me again next week. Take care.